It's here! Let's check it out. Here is the winter watercolor workbook. Let's take a look at what's inside. Here's an overview of all the different projects that you'll be finding. Every one is winter themed. It's a drawing that's got lots of opportunity to practice tips and techniques in watercolor, and they're all drawn for you. You just get to add the color. Starting off, you'll get to learn a little more about me and who I am as a teacher. Hopefully that helps you feel ready to learn and understand that I promise I'm on your side and I want success for you. Then we'll do an overview of what supplies you need. If you're not sure what to get or you don't have things already, you can follow the QR code to check out supplies that I use and recommend. Otherwise, just use what you have. I'll talk about a little more about preparing the space that you're going to work in and your expectations in mind. Mindset is a more important thing in your art than you might think. We'll go over a few terms and techniques to make sure that you're ready to create when I ask you to make a wash, outline, or I talk about color theory. Here you can refer back to make sure you're on the same page and you know what to expect. Here's the first project. You'll notice that for every project, there are pictures and written instructions on the left and the drawing for you to paint on the right. The drawing is done in pencil, so it should be lighter than a black pen. That's because at the end, I encourage you to try outlining and adding details with your own pen. You could create the same lines that I do with my pencil, or you could add more or less details with your pen to make it unique to you. I would suggest reading through the directions first to make sure you understand what the whole process will look like. Then go back and start painting. Sometimes it's important to know if things have to stay wet or if they should dry. Watercolor is all about creating and controlling the water and oftentimes the wetness of your paint or paintbrush or paper. Here's the second one. This one's all about holly leaves. We definitely do some wet on wet techniques to give the cool effect of light and dark on the leaves. For this one, I don't talk about painting the background, but things like that you can always change and make it unique to you. Here are some winter clothes. This one is a great place for you to explore and try something that someone else might not do. Change the patterns or colors and make it unique to you. This is a fun lantern in a pine. This is your first step to practicing these pine needles. We'll do those in a few more practices and a few more paintings throughout the book. They're definitely a fun skill to hone. Here we do a snowman. Now you might think there's not much to paint in this picture. That's one reason I gave you a bright sunset to try. But take a closer look and think about how you can add shadows to something that's white. That can be intimidating. Try adding very light shadows to show where the snow is without changing the whiteness of the snow. A cardinal on a branch is a classic fun thing that's very wintry and cozy. I know a lot of people who find cardinals especially meaningful. This one's got a little extra trickiness to it just because you want to try to keep these clumps of snow white while you're painting the blue sky in the background. Now, if mistakes happen, no big deal. I talk about some options. You can always go back and use a white pen to highlight or make things white that you accidentally cover up. A cup of hot cocoa is something I just couldn't resist. I love the coziness of it, and creating that chocolate drizzle on top is very fun. This one, I challenge you to think of some designs for your mug. So maybe instead of just making your mug plain, when you add your shadows and highlights, you could also think about a design on your mug. Maybe it says, "I love mom," or maybe it has a heart on it. Totally up to you. A cabin near the woods. Here's a nice landscape to practice doing some sky, leaving some clouds. Practice doing that texture in the trees to leave light and dark, and then a nice wooden texture on your building. This is another challenge where you'll want to add a few light shadows on the snow without making all the snow disappear. And then this one's a fun collection of different things. You start by making the skate look realistic by adding shadows while it's wet on wet. Then there's lots of fun little things to play with up at the top of the boot, thinking about the flower, holly leaves, and some pine needles. Oh, and the candy canes, don't forget those. Here is what's on the cover, a classic nighttime scene with a nice glowing moon and a pine tree. Once again, you're trying to avoid those white clumps of snow on your pine tree, but it's definitely a fun one to play with the cool, dark blues in the sky. And then we're at the end. You've seen all your projects and everything you want to create. I can't wait for you to find joy in watercolor and show me some of your masterpieces when you're finished too. Follow the link in the description to check out the Winter Watercolor Workbook, hopefully the first of many workbooks, so take a look around and see what else I've got available ready for you to practice watercolor. Happy painting!